Hello YouTube, decided I wanted to go ahead and do another makeup tutorial today. Decided to this time do Ivan from Borderlands. So you can see all the details in here. So the tutorial is following, so you just kind of watch along and see everything I do. I do start after I've already glued down my eyebrows. So if you want to see that technique, you can see my Sailor Pluto. I'll also be putting up another link shortly to do that tutorial by itself, so you'll be able to see that, how to cover up your eyebrows naturally without having to them be in the way when you're working on an entirely new face from scratch. All right, like I said, we're going to go ahead and start off with eyebrows already done. So if you want to see that, again, go watch my other videos. Sailor Pluto has a demonstration on how to cover up your eyebrows very easily. Right now, I am using the Marin Paradise makeup paints. They cover very well onto the face and also cover up anything that needs to be done. So I'm just putting a base layer down for the base of my makeup for today. This is a new character for me. I'm doing all these line work, something I've not done before. So this is going to be a lot of fun, and the character turned out really well. So what I am doing is I'm going to go ahead and start with the scarring on my face. I want to make sure that I get as much of the base detail of the scar as I can. And Ivan does have a couple of scars across his face. One's a much bigger one than the other. And so here you can see this one's going to be like the main scar above my right eye. I'm just adding a little bit of extra detail into the scar. Started with a base layer of a darker brown, adding a little bit of red on top of it to give it a little bit more dimension. And I'll be adding a little bit more even further on down through the rest of the video. One of the things that is really unique about the Borderlands characters that I've noticed is there so much line work with the characters, and if you're not careful, you can make a mistake, especially with the black. Luckily, it's when you first put it on, depending on where you put it, you can go back and correct, and that's what I did. But with these characters, there's so much line work because they're drawn almost cartoonish, but not. So I really enjoyed doing this makeup today, mostly because it was a new challenge and something I'd not done before. So I was really looking forward to making up this character and seeing how I can bring this character as much to life as possible. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just kind of shaping out the main details with the black, with a very, very fine black brush, or fine brush that I've used with the Marin Paradise paint. Most of the look today is going to incorporate Marin Paradise paint. Almost every bit of it. There's just a little bit of time where I go to some powder, but for the most part, it's mostly the Marin Paradise paint. So what I'm doing is I'm just basically blocking out where I want the colors to go. Above his eyes, we don't really see a whole lot of detail because there's so much shadow under the eyes that it just makes sense to just go ahead and fill them all in with black completely, because you're not going to see it anyway. So I'm just kind of filling all that area in with black and making sure it all gets covered up evenly all the way across. And with that brush, if you're looking at the main, one of the very detailed pictures of Ivan, is the lower lid is very pronounced. So I'm just kind of adding in, using my very fine brush, and adding in a little bit of detail to make an extra part, an extra ridge, some might say, onto that right below the eye. And now I'm going to start carving out my face, carving out the contouring, because he has some very harsh contouring for his cheeks. So I'm just going to kind of fill those in a little bit darker for the sides. And then I am going to use brush palette here, or powder palette here, so that I can darken it and smooth it out a little bit more to make it where it blends a whole lot better. All right, so we're also going to do the same thing for the upper ridge of the above the eyebrows. He does have a very stark ridge line right about in that area on both sides. So kind of doing the same thing, filling it on the side, then adding a little bit of touch of brown powder, darker brown powder into the side to make sure that it kind of blends down, so it kind of gives a very stark ridge line right there. All right, and again, with the Borderlands characters, again, there's a lot of little line work detail across the face, and it's very important to add all that in as much as possible for your character when you're painting the character on your face. It makes the character very recognizable. With that, the more detailing that you do, the better sometimes with some of these characters. So here, I wasn't really too happy with the full shape of the contouring right there, so I decided to go ahead and add a little bit more. And again, like I said, adding in details. So I'm going to add in the crow's feet on the side of the eye, because he has some really strong crow's feet on the side of the eye. We don't really see the other side because it's mostly in shadow, so I want to make sure that that part is in shadow as well. All right, looks like I have switched over to some powder paint. So we're going to kind of just float through this, adding more detail into the black, kind of blending it out through there. I'm trying to make it as believable as possible, as realistic as possible. Again, making sure that the colors are in there, they stick. And just kind of pulling out from the stark lines, pulling it out and blending it out. And that way it gives it kind of a more natural look to it. All right, it's time to add in those eyebrows. Ivan has some really interesting blue hair. And so that when I first saw the character, I was like, ooh, this is the character I want to do today. Mostly because I really wanted to incorporate my beard, and I really wanted to do a male character today. I don't do a whole lot of male characters. So this is, all again, another challenge for me. So here I'm just kind of blocking out the eyebrows. He's got some really strong eyebrows. And after I get those brushed in, I'm going to add a little bit of black on the lower side of it, and then use some powder to blend that up in. That way it makes those brows a little bit more believable. So they're going to have a little bit more shadow on the underside of it as opposed to the upper side of it. And after that, I'm going to add in my detail of the brow around, so I get a clean edge around the eyebrows. I'm going to do that on both sides. I did do a little bit of touch-ups on a couple of areas, and every time you work with powder with this, you do want to make sure that you go back over top of it with that black again. If you have black lines, anytime you work with powder on it, it's going to mute them down a little bit. So if you want it to be full and really stark black, go ahead and cover it back up. You redo it again. And here's where I'm going to start incorporating my Mirror in Paradise paint into the beard First, I'm going to start with just the base color of blue, and then after I'm done with that, I'm going to add in the black to give it a little bit of shading, to matter where the light is coming from. So I'm going to start here. You'll get through the rest of the powder, or not the powder, getting through the rest of the Mirror in Paradise paint. We're just, again, filling in everything to make it look as neat and clean as possible. And always make sure to get on the underside of my beard too. It's a little bit more difficult to get to that area, but it does work out really well. And it makes it a little bit more believable not having that underneath as well. One of the things that's a little bit harder for me to do is coloring the hair on the top of my head. It's a little bit more difficult. So you have to do that with the best you can. Sometimes people use toothbrushes to work with this to work this Mirror in Paradise paint in. I just use them regular makeup brushes and just kind of brushing into the sides. I'm not going too far back onto the sides of the head today, mostly because I'm not doing a full look, and this is just this is not for any kind of look that I'm taking out into like a convention or anything. I'm just doing this here just for this tutorial. So now I'm adding a little bit of black into the sides and on the upper part, just to add a little bit more dimension into the beard. Because without it, it just looks really flat. I do love this blue Mirror in Paradise paint because it's a metallic-y color, and so it just reflects really well. And then finally, I'm also going to add in the outlinings for my beard, because we do need to have that. It needs to be all the way around as much as possible, just to give that good solid look to it. And coming back in and just adding some more details to all the scars and everything, because you want to make those as detailed as possible without overdoing it. So I usually do let that sit, kind of get my idea of what I want to do. Across the nose is actually a Band-Aid. So I first decided to go one route, but then I decided to change it up just a little bit to make it a little bit more obvious that it's a Band-Aid. So we're going to add a little bit more color, adding a more white to it, so it kind of really stands out as being a Band-Aid. And now I'm also going to add a little bit of white detail around edges of things. If you look at the characters, usually they're all mostly hand-drawn, and that way it looks very well to be how it needs to be. So I'm also going to be adding more white on top of everything, just to kind of give a little bit more extra shading and the way they do. I decided at the end to go with the Mirror in Paradise paint white in the end, because the powder just wasn't doing too well for me. So I decided to use the white Mirror in Paradise paint, and then I just blend it out from there. Just touching up final details. And one of the last few things I'm also going to work on in this tutorial is doing the lips. Because the lips were also very defined as well, I wanted to make sure that I got those into detail as well. So we're going to darken those up, add some shadowing in there, as well as extra little parts on the side. And we can't forget the forehead ridges. I really hope everybody enjoyed watching this tutorial on how to do this character from Borderlands. It was a real lot of fun to do, and I'd be on the lookout for more. I'm going to be doing a whole lot more coming in the near future. Just so if you enjoyed what you watched, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Also hit the like button, and we'll wait for the next ones to come out.